How was your family dynamic growing up?
It's fair to say that my father had very high standards, and so did my mom in different ways. My father left school after the 8th grade to go to work. It was not easy to live up to the standard he set, especially for me who didn't share his passion for farm and ranch work. I had an older brother who did, and who was much better than me at that. The Christian faith was important to both of them, but I think particularly to my mom. And one of the things that used to drive me crazy with my mom is, because I was very kind of stubborn, and like I had my approach to things. I wanted to do things my way, and she would encourage me to think of other people and to not think of that my life somehow belonged to me. I remember her saying something, which I later found out was a quote from the Bible, from St. Paul, where she said something to the effect of, "Son, your life is not your own. It has been paid for at a great price." And I remember feeling like that annoyed me, because I wanted to be free, basically. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I didn't want anything holding me back from what I felt like was my mission.
From that quote, what she said, what did you feel like was holding you back?
Well, there are expectations, like that I had to fulfill certain roles, and I didn't want to. My mom sensed that we always have to be thinking about the common good. That's an essential challenge to this get away with whatever you can, and kick the other guy in the face to climb to the top of the heap kind of American dream. There is another American dream, a revolutionary one, that is directly opposed to that, and in its way, in their way, my parents were pointing me towards that, even though at that time I didn't want to go.
Is that revolutionary dream embodied in punk rock music?
Well, it was for me at the time, and I think it still is, although I see it differently now than I did in the mid-1970s when I first listened to Patti Smith. Rural working class life at that time felt like a prison to me, and I didn't know if life honestly was worth living. If this is all I had to look forward to, like this go nowhere, never-ending trudge up the hill of manual labor is what my life is going to be about. Why live? Why live?
Were you suicidal?
At that time, sure.
About what age was that?
In my teens. And so when I heard Patti Smith, and then shortly thereafter heard Sex Pistols, and of course The Clash, maybe most importantly, and other bands, it spoke to me in this deep way that was my life preserver in a very stormy sea. It was that music that inspired me to be true to my own vision. And then, because these songs are singing about change, about taking action and not being scared to stand up, I had to stand up too, and I became an activist.
Even though you didn't identify with the working class strife at all, you resisted.
Well, you see the thing is, on one hand, I'm resisting it, but that was from within the context of, that's all I know. But what it did is bring me ultimately out of my shell, into being an activist, into excelling as a student, into being able to get the kind of grades and test scores that was necessary to be able to go to essentially any school in America, as long as I could find a way to borrow the money to go there. So I went to Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies in Washington, D.C. It was an institution that would give me a degree that would bring me into the lower echelons of the American ruling class. And as such, I was very ambivalent about that, because in my heart I knew I was compromising myself, that I was doing something for appearance. I was doing something to simply make an easy track towards a lucrative job or success in the eyes of the world. But I didn't know what else to do. And so I remember coming here, and one of the first places I visited in Washington, D.C. was the Lincoln Memorial, because again, what a temple to American idealism. There on the walls, on the marble walls. Government of the people, by the people, for the people.
What does that mean to you?
It means everything to me. It means that people, and all people, not just a few, all people are at the heart of the American experiment.
Does it make you think of your family?
Of course it makes me think of my family. Where did I first read that? In a book that my mom bought for me, a little biography of Abraham Lincoln, and then I broke down and cried when I was there, because I'm from nowhere, and this is a place. This is the Lincoln Memorial. And then I started crying again, coming out, because there were homeless people, living with their few belongings on the steam grates just outside. And the distance between the reality of Washington, D.C., and of America by implication, but of D.C., and the idealism was heartbreaking. I started volunteering at So Others Might Eat. I was going to school on Embassy Row. I would go to class in the morning, go to my apartment and change into work clothes, walk across from DuPont Circle, P Street, across over to North Capitol Street. And it was like I was going into another world. I went from the halls of white privilege, if you will, into an African-American world that seemed utterly distant, not only from Embassy Row on one side, but the Capitol Hill on the other side. And so I began to feel like, and I'm sure it's my mother's voice, my father's voice, something more was required of me than what I had in mind. And We Are Family is a way to show that even though these ideas are very simple, the idea that we're sisters and brothers in one family and have to look out for each other, past whatever differences we have, that those simple ideas are revolutionary, radically revolutionary, if we take them seriously and try to live them out. And it is one of the greatest gifts in my life to do this work. It has transformed my life. It brought me to my wife, to our kids, to so much of what is most precious to me. And maybe most precious to me is that both of my parents lived to see me do this work. To know that in the end, I was not rebelling against them. I was taking it very, very seriously, what they were telling me. And I was just trying to do my best, and am trying to do my best to find my way to know how to do it for real. Our lives are not our own. Our lives were paid for by so many people at such a cost. And all we can do to repay that enormous debt is to pass on what we were given. That is the best, the most beautiful possibility of life, I think.
Do you think you'll achieve it in your life?
No, but that's part of the point. The overall arc of this drama, of this grand story, we play our part. That's all we can be expected to do, but it is precisely what we each must do. And it's enough.
Thank you.